Welcome back everybody to this week's video. This week, instead of doing a tutorial, we're going to take a look at what I believe the ranks are for every legend. Now this all is just my opinion, so your ranking or your thoughts on the tier list may differ from where I have everybody ranked. This is largely due probably to different playstyles or everybody using the legends a little bit differently. I am also ranking these legends just purely off competitive play, ranked or pro play. I don't play almost any pubs, so I'm not ranking them off how much kills you can get in a pubs match. I'm not taking that into account at all, just looking at team comps and how well they do in ranked play. But please let me know in the comments down below what you think the changes should be made or how you think your legend list differs from my legend tier list. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. Now for each of these individual legends, when I talk about them, I'll have the link up in the corner to my video tutorial that I did on that legend, because I've done one for every single legend. And you can check that out if you want to see more information on how to play them, or just more thoughts I had on the legend, and that'll give you more insight to my thought process. We're going to start out with the C tier because I truly believe that all the legends in Apex currently are viable, they're all playable, they're all at least decent. I truly don't believe that any of the legends belong in the D or below tiers because I don't think any of the legends are bad or severely hinder or hurt your chances in a fight. Alright, so starting off in the C tier, my bottom legend out of all the legends is maybe one of the most fun legends to play, one of the most satisfying legends for sure, and that is Mirage. The reason I rank Mirage in the C tier is because Mirage's passive is very situational. You won't always have teammates that go down when you're able to save them, and if you're near enemies, you going invisible doesn't really help. It's helpful when it happens, but it just doesn't happen that often. Mirage's tactical is okay. Higher level players just won't fall for it, or if they do, it's from a distance where it doesn't matter. Like if you're sniping and you hit a Mirage decoy, it doesn't really do anything, so it's not that helpful. Occasionally you'll get a really nice bamboozle and it's super satisfying, but besides that, it's just really not that useful. Mirage's ultimate, however, is Mirage's saving grace. It's very useful, and it comes back extremely quickly. It's even more useful if you're in a building or in a crowded space. It makes it even harder to discern which Mirage decoy is the correct one, or which one isn't the decoy, therefore making it extremely beneficial, especially in those one-on-ones. Mad Maggie is the next legend in my tier list. She's also in the C tier for me. I just don't think she is that conducive to ranked. I think she's very situational. I also don't like shotguns that much, so that might be part of why I rank her so low. Her passive, it's nice to run with a shotgun out, and the hit scan ability lasts for a super brief second. It's just not that useful, in my opinion, but this is probably largely because I don't run shotguns almost ever. Her tactical is, in my opinion, her best part of her ability, but it's just very, very situational. It's a little more useful now with Newcastle, but even with like a Gibby shield or like a Newcastle wall or a Newcastle shield, you can just step away. You can just step to the side, you can step back. If they have nowhere else to go, it can be really annoying, like late ring. But for the most part, it's easy to avoid, making it not that useful. For Maggie's ultimate, I like the thought of it more than I like it in premise because it just really doesn't do that much damage or have that much effect. The speed boosts are really nice. It does stun and disorient quite a bit, but if they can have a place to recover or just react for a second, then they'll be fine. But if they are near an edge or near the ring, it can be extremely lethal and deadly because it'll just throw them off. So in certain situations, it's very, very effective. But overall for me, Mad Maggie is just a little too situational for me to rate her higher than a C. To round out the C tier, we have Lifeline. This legend's gotten a lot of nerfs throughout the days. Used to be my favorite legend to play in the first couple seasons. But with all the changes and nerfs and the introduction of new legends that just make Lifeline not as good, like Newcastle, especially this season, Lifeline is just taking a back seat. Still a viable legend, but her tactical is alright with the dock healing drone. Her passive is decent with the revive where you can move, but I mean, used to be better, and Newcastle has essentially a better one right now. And maybe the most slept on part of her kit is her ultimate. Her ultimate with the care package can get you kitted very quickly. You can get, it now has smart loot, so you can get whatever you need out of it. However, it does take quite a while to get that care package online if you don't have ult excels, and it honestly brings a lot of fights to you that can really get you killed and ranked. So it's got its advantages, but overall Lifeline is just not as good as she used to be. Next we step into B tier with the legends that I consider to be good but not great. Starting off in B tier, we will start with one of the legends that is one of the originals, very loved by the community, and that is Bangalore. Bangalore for me has always been good, but never great. Always like sort of lower mid tier, and as more legends continue to come out, just get slowly pushed further and further towards the bottom, as most of those legends are just better. So Bangalore's passive is the double time. When you're being shot at, you move faster, and this can be helpful, but a lot of times you're not being shot at, or you're not able to get away with this ability because it's not fast enough. It's just not as useful as it could be. Bangalore's tactical is her smoke. It used to be a very good ability, extremely useful, but it's slowly been losing its use over time as Apex releases more and more surveillance legends. They started with just Bloodhound, and now they've released Crypto and Seer, and even Mad Maggie has a little bit of that surveillance with her ability to scan you once she shoots you. So it just doesn't work near as well as it used to, and it's not near as effective. Bangalore's ultimate is her Missile Barrage. This has never been a super strong ability. It's more of just a deterrent. It will help you keep a distance between the enemy and you, but most of the time you can find gaps in the Missile Barrage, especially if it's not over like a flat ground. So it just isn't super effective. It rarely does any, if at all, like a lot of damage. So it's just not a super effective part of Bangalore's kit. The next legend we want to talk about in the B tier is Rampart. Rampart is a very solid legend after the recent buffs. All these buffs have improved Rampart quite a bit, and she's really viable now, but I still personally believe that she has to be too stationary with a lot of her abilities to really be at that next tier. So I have her in the B tier. Her passive is the extra ammo in LMGs and reloading them faster. Her tactical are the shield walls, which are incredibly helpful and probably the best part of her kit. And what's recently got the most buffs is Sheila, her ultimate, which originally was just bad and not really usable at all, and now is actually a pretty usable part of her kit. It revs up pretty quickly. It's very effective for thirsting enemies, barreling through doors, just shooting down a single line of fire, but it does still make you really slow, and that lack of movement will get you killed. Overall, Rampart has progressed a lot with these buffs. She went from being the worst legend in the game to being a solid B tier legend. The next legend coming in still at the B tier is Fuse. Fuse is another legend that's seen a lot of changes since when he first dropped. With Fuse's passive of carrying extra grenades per slot, and his tactical of the Knuckle Cluster, which he now has 2 of, Fuse is just the third-party master. If you want to take on a third party, jump into a fight that's not yours originally, chucking in 10 nades to start is a good idea. And Fuse does that easily. Fuse also has the ultimate of the Mother Load, this giant ring of fire that will show where your enemies are inside of it and make it hard for them to escape without slowing or taking damage. But in my opinion, the best part of Fuse's kit is those knuckle clusters. Having 2 nades that you can continually shoot at your enemies gives you a lot of extra damage that you wouldn't already have. Also, it's incredibly useful with all of the new structure legends, especially like Newcastle, who just came out. You can help destroy his structures, whether it be his tactical or his ultimate, and you can do it pretty quickly. Fuse is one of my favorite legends to play, and overall I think he's just a solid legend. The next legend in the B tier is Revenant. Revenant is a force to be reckoned with that often relies on another force. What I mean by that is Revenant, while good in his own right, gets really elevated when combined with a couple of other legends, which I'll highlight in just a second. So, Revenant's tactical is the Silence, with the passive of the ability to climb really high and crouch walk faster. And then the biggest part of Revenant's kit, the part that matters the most, is the ultimate, the Death Totem. This is the most important part of Revenant. This allows you to push a team and then instantly push them a second time after getting sent back to that Death Totem. Now, the Death Totem in itself is good, but Revenant really gets elevated when played with like an Octane, or even like a Wraith, a Pathfinder, an Ash, someone that'll allow you to get back to that original spot and push that second time quicker, faster, and allow that team to not have any time to heal up or recover from that first push. Now, this Death Totem can feel like one of the most oppressive abilities in all of Apex. You just don't feel like you have any answers for it. You don't know what to do or how to combat it. But because it relies so much on another legend with that movement ability to be that oppressive, that's why I have Revenant in the B tier. Rounding out the B tier as my final legend in that tier is Horizon. Horizon, in my eyes, is a very good legend, but probably the worst of the movement legends. It's very just vertical, and it doesn't have a whole lot of like speed to the movement. You can go up and down. That's roughly it. Horizon has a passive that's helpful, but sometimes not even noticeable, in that you land and you move instantly instead of having to take a second to move after landing. Horizon also with the tactical, that's a very good part of Horizon's kit, allowing you to move vertical, but that's about it. It just goes up and down, so it doesn't add a whole lot of speed to either direction, and if you get used to it, you can shoot a Horizon off of their vertical lift pretty easily. The last part of Horizon's kit is the ultimate, the Black Hole. This can be really effective if used well. However, Horizon's ult by itself is really not that threatening. You can kill it pretty easily, and if it's not paired with something like nades or a Caustic ult or Fuse ult or something else in that vicinity, then it's just really not that strong. However, when paired with those, it can be really, really effective. So, because Horizon needs something else to use with the ult to make it very good, and because the movement Horizon offers isn't near as good as some of the other movement legends, I have Horizon in the B tier. Now moving on to the next legend, and moving up a tier to B+ tier, we have Crypto. So Crypto is a really interesting legend, and the first surveillance legend that we'll see on this list. Crypto has the passive of the Neuralink, which is the enemies are detected by his drone, the tactical ability to use the surveillance drone, and the ultimate of the drone EMP. All of Crypto's abilities are pretty good abilities. I think they're all solid, but the reason that Crypto is only B+ and not any higher is largely because all of Crypto's abilities revolve around the drone. Now this hurts Crypto for a couple of different reasons. One, if the drone gets destroyed, then Crypto has no abilities, making Crypto essentially useless. And two, the drone takes you out of the fight. So they did a little buff recently to help with this a little bit, where you can throw your drone now and it just like goes to the area that you direct it, which really helps and makes Crypto a lot better than Crypto was. However, Crypto still a lot of times has to be in the drone to be using it, and this just hurts your team because you can't then be shooting at enemies and involved in the fight. But overall, Crypto is a very solid legend. I do love pushing off drone EMPs. They're very helpful to get those enemies in a bad position, have them stunned, losing that shield, and being able to know how many enemies are in the area, as well as grab banners and res instantly from a distance, are abilities that make Crypto a very solid B+ legend. The next legend in the B+ tier is Wattson. Wattson's abilities are super defensive. She might be the most defensive legend in the game. Her tactical of the perimeter security, the fences that she makes are super good. They just got a buff recently for more damage and more stun. They're very, very useful and can be used in quite a few different ways, but I think her strongest ability is still her interception pylon. This allows you to not only charge your shields incredibly fast, but it also allows you to intercept any incoming nades or bombardments or any projectiles really, which is incredibly helpful, especially with so many other legends depending on them, like Gibby and Caustic and Bangalore. The weakest part of Wattson's kit is probably her passive. She slowly restores shields over time, which is alright. It can make a difference if you're out of shields, but often it doesn't matter that much. And then she also can carry an extra ultimate accelerant per slot, and it'll fully charge her ultimate if she uses an ultimate accelerant, which is nice. But again, you're not going to use it that often, maybe once a game. So overall, her passive is kind of weak. And because she does the best when she's in an enclosed space, like a building, Wattson really has to have certain situations to be super strong. If she's out in the open for the final rings, it just really takes away from her abilities, and she usually gets taken down pretty easily. But overall, a very solid legend coming in at the B+ tier. The next legend in the B+ tier is Newcastle. Newcastle's the newest legend to Apex, and I think from what I've seen so far, I would place him right here in the middle of the B+ tier. He's a solid legend from what I've seen. He essentially replaced Lifeline with his passive of being able to res, block with a knockdown, and drag the person you're resing to safety. He has also a shield wall he can throw up for his tactical, and an entire fortress for his ultimate. He's also a fortified legend, just making him a tank to take down. Newcastle does have a little bit of a weakness in the fact that all of his fortifications are very one-sided. This really can hurt you if you don't have something to place them against or protect your backside, or if you're not pairing with like a Caustic or a Wattson to further fortify your position. If you get thirded and you're sitting in one of his fortifications like this, there's really nowhere to go. However, Newcastle does have some very strong abilities, and from what I've seen so far, they can be used very effectively to not only keep your teammates alive, but also secure the position that you have in like a ranked game if you have high ground, making it very hard to be pushed. All of this is what makes Newcastle a solid B+ tier legend. However, Newcastle, out of all the legends I'm going to rank, probably has the most chance of changing, because partly that they're new, and partly because a lot of new legends often get nerfs and buffs fairly quickly out of the gate within the first couple months. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see where I think Newcastle goes power level wise. The next legend we have in this tier list is still in the B+ tier, and it's a movement legend, and that is Ashe. With Ashe's passive, she can see death boxes on the map of where people are dying, and if she finds one, she can mark it and find out where the people who killed that person are on the map. Her tactical is the arc tether. That might be my favorite part of Ashe's kit. It's really satisfying to tether people to a certain location and know that they can't get out of there and chuck nades in there or push them really hard. The ultimate Ashe has is the phase breach, and in my opinion, this is the most frustrating part of Ashe's kit. Mark for Death has some uses as the passive, and seeing those death boxes and finding the attackers is helpful sometimes, but it's not useful that often. But with the ultimate, the phase breach, I just get frustrated with how long it takes to set up. It's not an instantaneous thing. Often it doesn't line up. Much like when you're trying to use like a Pathfinder zipline to line up, it just takes a second to line up, and you're very vulnerable for that moment where you're trying to set up where you're going to with a phase breach. This makes Ashe's ultimate not the best for getting away from an enemy squad if you have to pull out of an encounter. Compared to other movement legends, I just very much prefer like an Octane jump pad, or even a Valkyrie, or even a Wraith portal. It's just not as strong for getting out of certain situations. However, the plus side to this is the phase breach is very, very useful for pushing a team and pushing into certain areas. When you have that split second to be setting up where you need to go with it, it is very, very useful, and it does do height a lot better than some of the other ones I named. You are also protected while using it to travel, so this is a lot better than like a Pathfinder zipline in that instance. However, it does only last for like a couple seconds, 8 seconds probably, and this can be good in some scenarios, but it can also be really bad in other scenarios if like one of your teammates can't reach it and then they're stuck behind. So it has its pluses and minuses, but overall Ashe is a very solid B+ legend. The next and final B+ legend in my tier list is Pathfinder. So I rank Pathfinder over Ashe for a couple of different reasons. Pathfinder just has, I feel, more versatility than Ashe, is a better movement legend overall. Although Pathfinder doesn't really have a passive ability, I mean, you can get your ultimate instantly by using a survey beacon, but honestly, it's not really a passive, and Pathfinder's passive needs a rework. Pathfinder has one of the best tactical abilities in the game. The grapple as the tactical ability has such versatility and such ability to move from high ground to low ground to launching yourself across areas. It just can do so much that it makes up for the lack of great abilities as the passive, and even the ultimate for Pathfinder it's alright. It can be really useful in certain situations, but often you'll get shot off of zip lines and it's just not as effective or as safe as you would want to use it to travel. The grapple really just gives that versatility that makes Pathfinder unique though. Being able to push in and push out of fights super quickly just allows Pathfinder to be so effective. Overall, all of these features are why I have Pathfinder as the top legend in the B+ tier. Moving on to the A tier, we have our second surveillance legend, and that is Bloodhound. Bloodhound, in my opinion, is one of the easiest legends to use, but also one of the most effective. Bloodhound has the passive of the ability to track people, the tactical of the scan, and the ultimate of the Beast of the Hunt. Of Bloodhound's three abilities, the best ability is that scan. This scan will give you a ton of information that you didn't already have. Having information like that in a fight, knowing where your enemies are when they don't know where you're at, can be extremely helpful and should help you win a lot more fights than if you didn't have that information. It's also really useful in ranked games when you might find rats or squads hiding in corners in different areas, and it really lets you know what you're up against, which in this type of game is extremely valuable. Bloodhound's passive isn't extremely useful. The tracking doesn't have a lot of situations where it's going to give you a lot of information or help you out a whole lot. However, Bloodhound's ultimate, the Beast of the Hunt, gives you an insane speed boost, making you one of, if not the fastest legend in the game. And this can be really useful for getting in and out of fights, and it also, while you have this activated, allows you to use that scan every 5 to 6 seconds, making it a lot more frequent and giving you a ton more information, which will help you win a lot more fights. Now overall, Bloodhound is a very strong legend, very worthy of being the first legend in our A tier. The next legend in the A tier, and our final surveillance legend, is Seer. Seer has the passive of the heartbeat scanner, the tactical of the micro drone blast, and the ultimate of the giant dome that allows him to see his enemies when they're moving around. Of these three abilities, while all of them are very strong, I think Seer's strongest ability is the ultimate. This dome just gives him a ton of information, with everybody in that huge sphere being able to be seen when they shoot, when they run, when they move. And it lasts for quite a while if they don't destroy it. However, it does take quite a long time to charge. In my personal opinion, Seer and Bloodhound are two pretty similar legends that have a very similar power level. I think they're very close in strength, but there's a couple things that separate them. The first thing I think is that Bloodhound is easier to use. Bloodhound is a lot easier legend to pick up. It's very easy to use the scan. All of his abilities are very intuitive. It's super simple to play. However, Seer, I feel like, is slightly stronger because with more skill level, and if you're better with Seer, there's a higher ceiling for playing with Seer than there is Bloodhound, in my opinion. The reason for that higher ceiling is because with Seer, you can actually detect enemies without them knowing that you're there, giving you a bigger sense of surprise to your opponents and allowing you to really get the drop on them. Also with Seer, you can disrupt. If you're good with the tactical, you can disrupt your enemies' heals and see how much health they have, which is information that Bloodhound scans just don't give you. So if you can get those accurate and really hit your enemies with them, they give you a lot more information and disrupt your enemy's healing, which Bloodhound scans don't do. Overall, this is why I place Seer slightly above Bloodhound and the second legend in our A tier. Moving on, we have our final legend in the A tier, Loba. Loba is a very unique legend, the only loot-centered legend in all of Apex currently, and Loba's passive allows you to see high-tier loot through walls, through bins, just allows you to see it all over on the ground, through all sorts of different obstacles, which can be pretty helpful. Loba's tactical is the bracelet. When it works, it helps you get out of fights, move to different positionings, take height. It can be extremely useful to reposition. And then Loba's ultimate is the black market, and this is the best part of Loba's kit. It allows you not only to get any gun that you want, but it also allows you to stay fully stocked on ammo, on heals, and never feel unprepared for any fight, especially late game. It's very, very useful. It also has a very quick recharge time, which allows you to use it over and over again. And not only can you stay stocked for your team, but you also can starve the other team's left of loot, taking everything that they would need from their areas, even taking their body shields if they drop them. It can be a very, very fun way to play, having that much at your fingertips. Overall, Loba is just an extremely solid legend, one of my favorites to play, and that's why Loba comes in at the top legend in our A tier. Next, we're moving on to the A+ tier. With the first legend in that tier, we take a look at Caustic. Caustic is an extremely strong legend, has a lot of really good abilities, from the gas barrels as the tactical to the Nox gas grenade as the ultimate, and the ability to not take damage and see through the gas as the passive. All of these combine for a very oppressive kit, especially if Caustic catches you in a building or in a small area. He can quickly take down multiple enemies, even being one of the easiest legends to 1v3 with. If you try and push a Caustic in a house or in a small building, beware, that will not end well for you. The only thing that Caustic really has to be worried about when having that fortified area of Nox gas and Nox gas traps is another Caustic, which makes him incredibly difficult to deal with. You either just have to wait him out and hope he doesn't get ring, or you have to try and push into that terrible situation. While Caustic does sometimes struggle a little bit more in open areas, I think in general Caustic is so strong at holding down anywhere that he is located, and adding that fortified just gives him that icing on the cake to really punish other squads. Because of all these abilities making Caustic one of the strongest legends in the game, that makes him very worthy of this A+ tier. Now we come to my personal favorite legend, the second legend I have in the A+ tier, and that is Octane. Octane, while being fairly simple, is an incredibly fun legend to play. From the passive healing to the tactical stim to even the jump pad ultimate, all of these combine for a very explosive kit, which allows Octane to move in and out of fights incredibly easily. Octane's passive of the ability to heal slowly is also very overlooked. This allows him to heal his health while also healing batteries or shield cells and get back into that fight even quicker. However, Octane also has the ability to get out of any fight, any bad situation. Between the stim and the jump pad, there's no legend really that can keep up with Octane, and I've been able to outrun, outmaneuver every legend in the game. And with the cooldown on the stim being basically non-existent, you can stim forever at the cost of your health going down to 1. And with the jump pad cooldown being also very low, it allows you to keep these movement techniques quickly coming and allows you to move your squad from where you are to where you need to be very effectively. Overall, with all this movement at his fingertips, Octane is one of the best legends in the game and very deserving of this A+ tier. Moving on to the final legend in the A+ tier for me, and that is Wraith. Wraith is one of the strongest movement legends in the game for a couple of different reasons. The biggest of this is that Wraith's tactical Into the Void allows Wraith to poke into fights and push into fights without fully committing and then easily escape out without taking any damage on the back end. So this makes Wraith very versatile, allowing Wraith to be sort of like a forward scout to see what's happening, and then if danger presents to be too much, pull out of the fight and regroup with the team. Combine this with Wraith's ultimate, which the portal allows Wraith to easily reposition the whole team without taking any damage, or even grab a downed ally and pull them back to your other teammates so you can res them safely. And it makes for a very strong legend. And just having the bonus of the Voices from the Void as a passive, allowing you to know when there's teams in the area that are aiming at you, even if you weren't already aware of them, just gives you another element of Wraith's kit that's really unique. Taking all this into account, it just shows how strong Wraith truly is, and how deserving she is of this A+ tier. If you have a really good Wraith on your team that you can trust, you know your ranked game's going to go pretty well. Moving on to our final tier, this is the S tier. This is for the legends that you can't live without in ranked, the ones that you should take every time. If you got your team comp with these legends on it, then you know that you're going to create the best chance for you to win that game. Our first legend in the S tier is none other than Gibraltar. Gibraltar is a very, very good legend. He has the passive of Fortified and of the Arm Shield. He has the tactical of the Dome and the ultimate of the Defensive Bombardment. All of these abilities are very, very strong, and they make him incredibly hard to kill. While Gibby doesn't have a weak part of his kit, he does have a strongest part of his kit, and that is the Dome. The Dome is the most crucial part of Gibraltar's kit. Without the Dome, he wouldn't be near as good, but the Dome offers one thing in Apex that nobody else can provide, and that is cover in an open area. Nobody else can provide 360 cover in an open area where nobody can shoot you for those like 10 seconds or so that it'll last. It's because of this that Gibby really shines and allows you to make rotations a lot easier than any other legend, or push into rooms or buildings. He allows you to bridge those gaps that could be really, really treacherous if you didn't have that bubble. And this ability just really demonstrates how strong he is in the ranked play. And you pair that with two other strong abilities in the Arm Shield, which essentially gives you more health, and the Defensive Bombardment, which is very, very strong and can just absolutely destroy teams that get stuck out in the open without a Gibby. Or it can even force another team with a Gibby to use the shield, making them not able to use it later when they may need it to rotate or to push somebody. And it makes Gibby an S tier legend for sure. Now that brings us down to our final legend. You can probably guess who it is by now. The only other S tier legend in my mind, the only other must pick if you want to have the best ranked combination, and that is Valkyrie. Now Valkyrie is the top legend in Apex in my mind for a couple of different reasons. She has her tactical of her missile swarm, which is pretty solid. It's really useful to stun enemies. It's like a mini arc star. It only does about 25 damage, but that stun can be really, really effective. She has her passive of the jetpack, which is very nice for taking high ground and maneuvering all over the map. Allows you to easily go up and down on different levels of buildings, which just allows for smooth movement throughout the entire game. However, with even all these nice abilities within the passive and the tactical, Valkyrie really shines in her ultimate. With Valkyrie's Skyward Dive, she allows you to reposition and redeploy to that whole area, allowing you to pick the best spots. And since she can see all the enemies when she's flying in, you don't ever have to land on anybody. You can always take high ground if it's available, or cover. And you can always set yourself up with the best possible scenario to get that win. She also does a really good job of getting out of bad situations, third parties and stuff like that, because she is able to fly out with that Skyward Dive, and she can take the entire team with her, which makes it invaluable, especially with this current rank split on Stormpoint. But it's fantastic on every map. So there you have it, guys. That's my ranked list. Tell me what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe. Appreciate everybody who watched it all the way through. And I appreciate all the support along the way. I wouldn't be doing this without you guys.